Welcome to the vlog. Hi, my name is Autumn. I'm a reader and a writer, and today I am coming at you with a reading vlog. I originally had 6 books I wanted to read for this vlog, or not necessarily read all of them, but 6 books I wanted to choose from. However, this past weekend, I read one of them. I sat down and binged the entire thing in 2 sittings. So that book is no longer on the docket for this vlog. We'll talk about him a little bit later. With me today, I have 4 out of the 5 books, and the 5th book is an audiobook. I am the next up on the Libby app, and it was actually one of my anticipated releases for this year. I actually think in the spring. It is All the Other Mothers Hate Me by Sarah Harmon. And just quickly talking about the other 4 books, it's The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. I also had the audiobook come through with Libby, so I'm going to tandem read this one. I have The Troop by Nick Cutter. In full transparency, this book was on my horror books to read last year in 2024. But I never read it because I chickened out. I got really scared because I heard that it was pretty scary. Hopefully, because I'm putting it out into the universe again for a second time, I can get to it in this video. The next one up is The Firekeeper's Daughter by Angeline Bowley. I just got the audiobook through Libby for this one too. And then lastly, I have The Fury by Alex Michaelides. This is the sequel to The Silent Patient. I read The Silent Patient a couple of years ago, absolutely loved it, and now I want to read this one. I also have the audiobook through Libby too. I have all of these books. How do I choose which one to start with besides the audiobook that I'm waiting for? Well, you know, I'm so glad that you asked that. We are going to have the spinner wheel choose what book I'm going to start with. How this is going to work, even though I don't yet have the audiobook for All the Other Mothers, it's still gonna stay on here. I'm gonna spin it anyways. If we get that, whenever that book becomes available, we'll just jump in and start reading it. We're just gonna go ahead and spin and see what I get. And of course, I would get All the Other Mothers. That's just typical, right? I'm gonna go ahead and just spin it again. I guess I could have taken that out of the spinner wheel, but it's fine. We're just gonna spin again because who cares? Okay. So the book that is going to kick off this vlog, besides the audiobook when that finally comes in, is going to be The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. I honestly really don't know a whole lot about this book. It isn't paranoia if it's really happening. Anna Fox lives alone, a recluse in her New York City home, unable to venture outside. She spends her days drinking wine, maybe too much, watching old movies, recalling happier times, and spying on her neighbors. Then the Russells move into the house across the way, a father, a mother, and their teenage son, the perfect family. But when Anna, gazing through her window one night, sees something she shouldn't, her world begins to crumble, and its shocking secrets are laid bare. What is real, what is imagined, who is in danger, and who is in control? In this diabolically gripping thriller, no one and nothing is what it seems. Interesting. Okay, it sounds really good. I'm actually gonna tandem read this. The game plan for at least today, my sister-in-law and I had plans to go get facials, but our 2 ladies that were supposed to be doing the service both were sick and had to cancel. So she's actually gonna come over later and we're gonna do face masks here. I am going to listen to my audiobook for this book. Until then, when I have an update on The Woman in the Window, I'll talk about the other book that I had for this video that I ended up reading this past weekend. It's been gloomy outside all day, and I was hoping to get a little bit more natural light for this update, but we're gonna just deal with this. I've been doing some reading today. I am actually in the middle of watching Hocus Pocus. It's one of my favorites. I love to rewatch it at the beginning of October. I'm coming on here because I want to give you guys an update. I finished The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn, and I'm giving it 4 stars. I had a lot of fun with this, and this has a lot of tropes that I really like. I love an unreliable narrator, and you get that in here. I love when you don't really know what's going on. Like anybody is a suspect and I just don't trust anybody. I don't trust any of the side characters. This is also in here. This follows our main character, Anna Fox, and she lives alone in her New York City home. She likes to kind of spy on her neighbors. She ends up seeing something that she was not supposed to see as she was spying through the window. Pretty much unravels in the entire story, and then we're on the fence feeling like, did Anna actually see this happen? Was this some type of hallucination? You know, like what exactly is going on? I very much enjoyed this book. It's not a 5-star read because I don't have that 5-star feel after reading it. It would be something I would recommend though. Really had a great time with it. I think the audiobook was really great too. There are some like interesting spooky type things that are going on. I do enjoy suspense like that, like weird things. Since we're in the vein of an unreliable narrator, I wanted to talk about one of the books that I wanted to read for this vlog, but I ended up sitting down and I read the whole thing in 2 sittings. It is The Last House on Needless Street by Catriona Ward. I've read another book by this author and I DNF'd it, did not like it. It took me a long time to get the courage to read another book from this author. This was a 5-star read. This had all the tropes that I really loved. While this one, I felt like some of the twists and turns were maybe not there, which is why for me it wasn't a 5-star. This one checked all the boxes for me. So this book follows 3 point of views. A little girl who isn't allowed outside. We follow a man who drinks alone in front of his TV and a house cat who loves napping and reading the Bible. I loved this. I had no idea where this book was going. No clue, had no idea. I feel like the more we got deeper and deeper into this story, I was like, this could go any way. Like I don't know what to think. I don't know what to say. This book I just purely read sitting down on the couch. I had no audiobook. I had no nothing but me and my eyeballs. I felt like this was a great spooky book that I wanted to read for this vlog. Hey friends, it's editing autumn and I have to jump in here to discuss what is about to happen in this video, because when I was editing it, I was so completely lost and baffled. I have searched my computer and my phone and I cannot find footage. You're about to watch me talk about the next book in this vlog. However, I have no spinner wheel footage of the spinner wheel choosing this next book. So I don't know what happened. I don't know where my marbles were when I chose this next book. I've been just sitting here, mouth gaping, trying to figure out how the heck I came up with this next book. But I could have swore I spun the wheel 3 times for this vlog, but I have no footage. I guess a shoddy memory because I thought I did it, but maybe I didn't. I am just as confused as you're about to be, but I wanted to clear that up, that I don't know what happened to the spinner wheel for this next book being chosen, but nonetheless, it was chosen and I read it, and we're gonna just stick with this book. But this vlog got really chaotic very, very fast. But next up on the docket, we have The Fury by Alex Michaelides. It says that this is a tale of murder, or maybe that's not quite true. At its heart, it's a love story, isn't it? Lena Faher is a reclusive ex-movie star and one of the most famous women in the world. Every year, she invites her closest friends to escape the English weather and spend Easter on her idyllic private Greek island. I tell you this because you may think that you know the story. You probably read about it at the time. It caused a real stir in the tabloids, if you remember. It had all the necessary ingredients for a press sensation: a celebrity, a private island cut off by the wind, and a murder. We found ourselves trapped there overnight, our old friendships concealed, hatred, and a desire for revenge. What followed was a game of cat and mouse, a battle of wits, full of twists and turns, building an unpredictable climax. The night ended in violence and death. But who am I? I am Elliot Chase, and I'm going to tell you a story unlike any you have ever heard. Really excited for this one. I have the audiobook through Libby. It's about an 8-hour audiobook, so I will be tandem reading this book mostly. I really want to go ahead and start this book today and get a little bit into it since it's such a quick audiobook. I'm also watching Hocus Pocus, so I'm like stuck between, but I think I want to stop watching Hocus Pocus for a little bit and dive into the next book for this video. I am about 23% of the way through The Fury by Alex Michelates. Let me grab it. I just finished, oh, I forgot that the chapter started over when you entered the next act. Okay, I was definitely not in the right spot in my book. I think I'm somewhere in here. Ha, here I am. Okay, I kind of spoiled something for myself, but not really, because I had a suspicion that that was what happened. But anywho, so I am still on part 1, and I just finished chapter 12, which is at page 63. Also about 25% of the way through. It's fine. I wouldn't say I'm completely blown away with the storytelling, with the writing, the characters or anything. I am not a huge fan of the format of like breaking that fourth wall, talking directly to the reader, like talking to me. And the reason I'm not a huge fan of this kind of storytelling is because you get a lot of telling of the stories versus reading it and watching it unfold in real time. The story is being told by our narrator as like we're hanging out with the narrator and he is telling a story of something that happened in the past. It makes sense in this story. I'm just not a huge fan of stories being told this way. I feel like it actually takes me out of the story. He'll be telling us a story, or you know, he'll start describing somebody and then he'll be like, oh, sorry, that's an opinion. Let me just stick to the facts. I understand the appeal of that kind of storytelling. It always takes me out of the story where I'm like, oh, okay, right, ooh, this is just whiplash. I wouldn't say I am overly loving it, but I'm also not hating it. I'm just enjoying the time. Like, it's fine, it's okay. It might just be like a middle of the road book, and I don't have the feeling where I want to put it down. One of my favorite tropes is the unreliable narrator, and I do think that we're getting a lot of this. Even though he says he's sticking to the facts of what's happening, it makes you wonder, are these the actual facts of what's happening, or are these how you're perceiving the events and you think that these are facts? I do kind of like that little mind game in here, and I am curious to see what all unfolds. I have some happy news, exciting news, that the audiobook for All the Other Mothers Hate Me is available. So I went ahead and borrowed it. I haven't started it yet, but any book that I will be reading for this vlog, I have the audiobook or I have the physical copy. I'll be able to hopefully get to the books in this video, or if I don't get to the books in this video, I want to read them before Halloween. That is the goal. In the next update, he will spin for the next book. Okay, so I really wanted to talk to you guys earlier, but I have been stuck coding all day. Well, not all day, because this morning I finished The Fury by Alex Michelates, and let me grab it. And I'm giving it a 3-star. For me, a 3-star is middle of the road. You know, it wasn't the best book I ever read. It certainly wasn't the worst book I ever read, and it's just okay. As we go through the story, we learn a lot about what was introduced in the first like 25%. So we kind of like backpedal, and then we start to like fill in the blanks and fill in the holes in the story until it all comes together at the end. I wasn't completely wowed by this book, but I wasn't disappointed either. I felt like it was very slow compared to what I was expecting. And considering I really loved The Silent Patient, and I felt like the twists and turns in that book were so good. They were so interesting and like perfectly plotted. With this one, it felt a little slow, but that might have been the intention of the author. And I think too, as the narrator was talking to us and we were explaining certain parts of the story and we were about to come to those big reveals, I felt like I was kind of figuring it out beforehand, where I'm like, oh, well, that's probably going to happen, and it did. I don't want to say that that took away from my reading experience. I mean, sometimes it felt pretty validating that I like guessed it correctly, but I just don't think that these types of stories, I don't want to say aren't like my favorite. I do like my thrillers and my suspense to be more snappy and not so much slow. And I know I mentioned this in my last update, where I don't really like when the author kind of breaks that fourth wall and I feel like they're talking to me. I know that's a specific writing style and it's just not something that I particularly care for. All of that to say, it was fine. It totally was fine. And I would totally recommend not reading this book before The Silent Patient, because there's a pretty big spoiler in this if you haven't read The Silent Patient. I read The Silent Patient, loved it. It's a 5-star read. I think about it all the time, and I thought about it as I was reading this book too. I would definitely not pick this up if you haven't read The Silent Patient, because you don't want to be spoiled for it. Let's go ahead and do our third and final spin. I had a low-key panic moment because I thought that my phone had deleted my spinner wheel for my spooky vlog, and I was about to be really upset. I want to go ahead and edit this because we read The Fury, so I can go ahead and delete that wedge because we're not going to need it anymore. Also, the Woman in the Window, I didn't get through all my books kind of like I wanted to for this video. I feel like it was a lot slower, and there were a few causes for that. That has nothing to do with reading. It's just how life has been. I'm gonna do one final spin, but I want to have a little disclaimer to say I have intentions of reading all 3 of these books, but I'm going to only read one of them for this final spin for this video. So let's go ahead and spin and see which one. Okay, so I'm actually really excited that it is this book. So it is All the Other Mothers Hate Me by Sarah something. Hang on, I have an ad. This was actually an anticipated spring release for me, and I've been on the waitlist for the audiobook since the book came out at the beginning of the year. Maybe not the beginning, but somewhere in the springtime. But I'm really excited for this book because it sounded so cool. All the Other Mothers Hate Me by Sarah Harmon. It says, a mother will do anything to save her kid. Anything. The missing boy is 10-year-old Alfie Risby, and to be perfectly honest with you, he's a little shit. Florence Grimes is a 31-year-old party girl who always takes the easy way out. Single, broke, and unfulfilled after the humiliating end to her girl band career, she has only one reason to get out of bed each day, her 10-year-old son Dylan. But then Alfie Risby, her son's bully and the heir to the vast frozen food empire, mysteriously vanishes during a class trip, and Dylan becomes the prime suspect. Florence, for once, is faced with a task she can't quit. She's got to find Alfie and clear her son's name or risk losing Dylan forever. The only problem, Florence has no useful skills, let alone investigative ones, and all the other school moms hate her. Oh, and Florence has a reason to suspect Dylan might not be as innocent as she'd like to believe. I'm super excited for this book. I really love the cover. I'll put it up on the screen so you guys can see it, and it looks so good. I heard that it is dark, suspenseful thriller, and there is some humor in it, and I do love me some humor in my thriller. So yeah, I'm really excited that this is going to be the last book for this vlog, and hopefully I'll be able to finish it in the next couple of days. I feel like I look like a hot mess. I wanted to give you guys an update. I am not finished with All the Other Mothers Hate Me. I am about 20% of the way through. So I'm gonna give you guys an update now, and then I'll give you one when I'm totally finished. But I just want to say I am really loving this book so far. Even though it surrounds a child missing and I'm only 20% of the way through, I really love our main character. I feel like she's super relatable. So I am not a mother. I feel like I can put myself in our main character's shoes, but some of the decisions she makes, I mean, some of the decisions she's making, I'm like, oh my gosh, you are so crazy and unhinged. But at other parts, I'm like, honestly, even though I'm saying that you're a little wild and crazy, I could see myself doing the same thing if I was in your position. I feel like the narrative is very well written. I think our main character is very relatable. So we've learned a little bit more about her backstory, about her son. She is divorced, and she brings up her ex-husband a little bit, but our main character, she is 30 and she had 31, and she has a 10-year-old son. She was married, she's been divorced. She was in a girl band, but something happened and it flopped, or at least she flopped. She is now living in London with her son, who goes to a private school. It's very interesting. She has a lot going on personally, you know, like in addition to what the main story is about, like with the plot with the missing child, she herself has quite a few things that are going on too. She's kind of juggling all of this stuff, but I think her character is very well written. I feel like everything that's happening so far makes sense. There have been a few other little spoilery things that I won't mention that have been dropped throughout this story that I think are also going to play a part as we continue on with this story. But right now, it's very interesting. There is a lot of humor, and that was what I wanted to mention earlier. I know it's pretty dark, you know, there's a child missing, but the humor surrounding it makes it a lot more lighthearted. But because of the humor making it feel not so dark and not so scary with like a child missing and what's going on, makes me feel like we may not have a super dark ending. And honestly, I kind of hope we don't. That's my update for now before my camera battery dies. I am here to give you guys the final report for the last book that I read for this vlog. I'm giving it 4 stars. I actually really liked this book. It was very entertaining, even though I kind of thought it was going to be a thriller, but not gonna lie, I really did genuinely have a lot of fun with this book. I had a few issues with some things in the story, but overall I think it's really fun and I think it's a good palate cleanser. Our main character is the mom of a little boy who went on a school field trip and some other child went missing on this field trip. So this mom kind of goes into this, I don't want to say wild goose chase, but she has a suspicion that her son might be part of how this other kid in the class went missing. So she's literally inserting herself into the investigation. She herself is doing some questionable things. I can't relate to the fact of I would do anything for my children because I don't have kids to say that I feel that connection. Sometimes some of the things that our main character would do, I just had a difficult time agreeing with because it came to the point where I'm like, okay, now you're gonna get in trouble for the things that you're doing. Also, you're supposed to be 31 years old. I'll be 29 in a few days. And I was just thinking about the choices that she made. Her as a character, our main character, the mom, sometimes I had a hard time connecting with her because she felt very childish. Just for example, something that kind of bothered me that she did a few times in the story, she was like talking to another adult and she didn't like what that adult said. If that other person turned and walked away or like glanced away or whatever, she would just stick her tongue out at them. To me, that's so childish. You know, it's one thing to do it to a friend where you're being funny, but it's a different thing when that's what you're doing in response to what another adult said to you and you don't agree with it. To me, it was just kind of childish. So there were things like that in this book I wasn't 100% keen on, or I thought like I just kind of eye rolled because it felt very childish. One other thing that I didn't quite enjoy with this book is I felt like the pacing was slightly off. I looked at some of the Goodreads reviews after I finished the book, and a couple of other people had mentioned that too, where they felt like the pacing, it like you jumped out the gate and all the things were happening and you were like, wow, you know, with all of the things that were happening. And then it did feel like it just kind of slowed down tremendously. So I feel like if maybe the author didn't have quite so many things going on, you know, too many subplots, or maybe if we had like reworded the story slightly differently to keep it more of that fast paced, I think it really could have benefited from that. But I mean, who am I to say if that a book needs to be edited differently or whatever? There were at certain parts where I was listening and I just felt like it took us too long to just get to the point. I listed a few things that I didn't really care for with the story, but I do think that the underlying purpose of this story, the mom telling the story, has that deep connection with her son, and you can tell that even though she's trying to act like a hard ass, I do feel like she wanted interactions with other people other than her kid, and I can relate to that too. But the story does get wrapped up. There's no cliffhangers, there's nothing like that. The twists and turns in here, I wouldn't say that they were wowed, and I feel like if you just kind of thought on this book, and everything that happened, you could probably figure out who done it type of situation and the reasons why. But it didn't affect my enjoyment of this book. I felt like this wasn't as complicated as maybe the author wanted it to be. It wasn't as mysterious to me. I'm usually a little nervous about reading stories about missing children. That's a very sensitive topic for me. Knowing that this book had humor into it, I just couldn't see it getting too dark. Although there was kind of a pretty dark part there at the end that threw me off just a smidge. The ending was fine to me. I looked again at some Goodreads reviews, and some people were a little disappointed in the ending, felt like it was a little like eye-rolly, and I can agree with that. Do I think so? I mean, maybe if I sit on it too terribly long. I just went into this book to have a good time. I wasn't really looking to be too critical on it because I think it was supposed to be more of like a light-hearted take. Other than that, you know, I did enjoy it. I thought that the writing was great. I did enjoy the writing, even though I said that the pacing was a little off and I felt like, you know, it kind of dragged a little bit in some places. I was never bored with the writing, even in those scenes that I felt like, you know, we could have picked up the pace a little bit. I didn't feel like it was too clunky or difficult. So I know this video didn't quite turn out the way I wanted it to. I wanted to read a few more spooky books that were more spooky than thriller, but it is what it is, and I am happy with the books that I read for this video. I'm a little sad I didn't get to the other books that I wanted to get to in this video, but nonetheless, I do still have plans to read those books. But let me know what books you're reading. I hope that you enjoyed this vlog. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.